to be here today. Privilege for me personally, in respect of the gathering that we are gathered for, to celebrate Allama Iqbal. Not only was he a great poet, he was also a huge philosopher, and I suppose probably the greatest politician. In these days of great division and conflict, he managed to see through all that, through his great poetry, through his great intellect, and was able to guide people under a very, very difficult time. And I think that is what is needed. Unfortunately, I get very upset by a huge amount of people who, and particularly politicians, and particularly when they're in opposition in Pakistan, is reciting a huge amount of poetry from the great Allama Iqbal. And what they do is they recite it. What they don't do is they don't understand it. What they don't do is follow it. If from the place that we had such great personality, such great person of stature arose, and we still can't put that house in order, I think it's a huge shame. And it's a shame for those people who continuously recite that poetry and not take effect from the learnings and the teachings that he's given us. So I'll chair this meeting for a while and leave some more, much more important people than I am to continue the program, but I'll still remain here as the chair. I'd like to welcome you to the House of Commons and Port Cullis House. This building was erected in 2005, as people on the taxpayers' lines would say, at a great cost to them. And so it was erected, but also we have a tube station underneath, which is part of that construction. We are here at the House of Commons and the Literary Circle of London, who have conceived, coordinated, and essentially put everything together. I'm just here looking pretty as I always do, so thank you to the Literary Circle for doing a huge amount of work behind the scenes and putting this program together. We're going to begin the program by observing a minute silence for victims of the war and terrorism around the world today. So I'd appreciate please if you remain quiet for a quick moment. Thank you. If we see how long a moment we can realize how long our lives are and how long we have to consider what is right and how long we have to consider what's wrong, and unfortunately we don't do that. So I'll get on and make formal welcomes to the very esteemed guests that are here. If I start with Mr. WALID IQBAL, very fortunate to have him here. And huge thanks to the Literary Circle for being able to secure such a great guest. I mean, we have a lot of guests in Parliament, but to have somebody of his stature, of his lineage and linkage, I think it's a huge privilege. And I think if we were to do more of these events, I think that would hold us. Unfortunately, the media don't always understand the issue of silence, but we'll have to continue with them in the background. So we'll try to carry on. I'm grateful for his wife, Nuria, to be here, their son, Shamjir, and the rest of his family members who made here. So I'm hugely grateful for all of them for their forbearance. I'm sure certainly the family would have found much better to go, and certainly Oxford is not too far from here. So I do really appreciate your being here. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome another very special guest who's become in a very short time become a very good friend and also a great advocate for Pakistan. In a very short time in the office that he's had here, he's been able to really sort of stretch across not just to the community and the diaspora across the country where I've seen him in action, I've seen him taking some very difficult questions, but more importantly I've seen him be able to actually guide and take up those questions and issues and address them in a very short space of time. And of course, being then able to reach out to the host community here and trying to actually put forward a far better status of the country that it represents, Pakistan, and it's none other than Ibn Abbas, the High Commissioner of Pakistan. Welcome, so thank you. We have also a great, again, poet, reader and writer in his own stature, I suppose, Mr. Kawal Singh, with us, and I'm sure you'll be here. Mrs. Kawal Singh. Mrs. like me, sits in the background, who's very Mrs. Kawal Singh, sorry, who, again, has a lot to offer. I'm sure she'll be saying that afterwards. Sandra Sterling, again, somebody who's spent, I've seen her initially as long as I've been here, and that's not been unkind because of the great work that she does and the huge amount of effort she puts in to lead very seriously, particularly in the third world solidarity, the work that she does. I think it's great for people like you to actually coming forward and putting those issues across to us, even parliamentarians and most of us. It's let us have more information. It's always useful to do that. So, Sandra, thank you very much for coming. The next person, I don't know quite how to address her, but like she's my sister. She's been around for a long time. She's taken a lot of personal grief, if I can say that, in her lifetime. But she's strode through that. She's worked very hard. She's shown a huge amount of resilience and continues to move forward. And that is Muniza Basir. She is a very good friend and very strong in her own right of the work that she does. Of course, Martin's mother has been really, really active and good support in the friend community. Thank you very much. We also have Arez Hassan, his son, so thank you for coming here. And just to say, all the work that your grandmother's done is absolutely fantastic, and I hope that you will follow in the brave steps of both your mother and your grandmother. And of course, behind every woman, there's a successful man. And Mr. Hassan Bashir, who is Muniza's husband, who again is a great support to the whole family and does a lot of work. So I wasn't supposed to put as a buy-in, but I couldn't do that without doing that. So really, to move very, very quickly forward. I'm not going to go over these notes that I've been given because that's what people tell me to do, and I always don't like being told what to do. The next person, the person who's actually going to start to take the event over and conduct this proceeding elegantly, I'm sure, is Pernia. Sorry, it's out from Birmingham, unfortunately. I'm not just doing good English, is also very, very difficult. Pernia has just completed the second year at Oxford. She is a very, very keen lover of Urdu, but more importantly of Kathak dancing. And I've seen some of the posting on Facebook. Never been invited to an event that she's been dancing, but I keep very much in touch with what she does because I'm always on Twitter's Facebook, and so I understand exactly what she's going on. And she performed in Kathak dance with at the South Bank with A.R. Rahman, which is a huge, I think, achievement and personal, I think, experience for somebody who's doing that to be able to do that. She has a special fondness for WALID IQBAL because the name was taken from one of Iqbal's poems called Kul Islam from. She's only confused me. Stanza 7 as part of the. It's asked me to read this poem as well. This one of the parts which reads, and I can't believe that so you can get it and read it. No, you can do it. Or you can do something else.
Because it's his man.
Yeah.
Musaf is in the video. He knows it, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is from the long poem through Islam, and the verse is Musafir Zindagi mein Sirat Falad paida kar, Shabistan ki mohabbat mein hero parniyan ho ja.
And again, I didn't read it deliberately because to read Iqbal and not get the pronunciation right, I think is also a crime not to do it. So before I make any more mess of this, the whole proceedings, I would like to hand you over to the next great person who's going to be Panida Shu. Thank you.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, और आप सबको ईद मुबारक। अल्लामा इकबाल के कलाम से आज की महफिल शुरू करेंगे। सितारों से आगे जहां और भी हैं, अभी इश्क के इम्तिहान और भी हैं। सही जिंदगी से नहीं ये इंतज़ाएं, यहाँ सैकड़ों कारवां और भी हैं। अनाथ ना कर आलम रंगू पर चमन और भी, आशियाँ और भी हैं। अगर खो गया एक नशे में तो क्या हम मकामाते आओ तो हाँ और भी हैं। तू शाही है, परवाज़ है काम तेरा, तेरे सामने आसमां और भी है। इसी रोज़ शब में उलझ कर ना रहता कि तेरे ज़मानो मकाम और भी है। गए दिन के तन्हा था मैं अंजुमन में, यहाँ मेरे नाम और भी है। शुक्रिया। I would now like to introduce Mrs. Gabal Singh. Gabal is an educationalist. She's been a head teacher for many years. Despite all her best efforts to retire for the last so many years, schools all over the country keep headcounting her to take charge of their schools. Gabal is also on the executive committee of an interfaith group called Roshan Bahami, and actively promotes dialogue between people of different faiths to live together with mutual respect and consideration. She believes that we need to move beyond tolerance and actually learn to respect each other. She is also the chair of the Literary Circle in London. So please join me in welcoming Mrs.
Actually, I do recognise myself for that, as you said it, I believe here. As the chair of the Literary Circle, London, I welcome you all, and thank you for reminding me of Eid Mubarak and Salam Alaikum for the subject now. The Literary Circle was founded by three women, Sandra, Huma, and myself. Our main aim is to promote women. We want to increase the representation of women in organizations and at events. We want to have events that reflect the gender as well as the multicultural or pluralistic makeups of our society we live in. So we want the participation of people from diverse backgrounds as hosts as well as audience. We want to hold high quality events for the people, opposed to the gloss, and find speakers, poets and musicians. We want to hold our events with dignity and ensure that our speakers and other participants are properly remunerated. We want to set an example in terms of timekeeping, precise organisation of event that maximises enjoyment for everyone. So I'm going to cut my speech a little short at the end to make sure we can catch up with the time. This event today, where we are privileged enough to host the great WALID IQBAL's grandson WALID on his own right as well, is also intended to reflect the truth that we are not a sexist organisation and we want to work closely with supportive egalitarian men. Membership of TLC is easy. That is not gender-loving care, that is literacy circle. And all you have to do is to send an email to the literacycircle@hotmail.com and you become a member. There is no membership fee, and as you can imagine in this time of day, there's nothing, as they say, no free lunch, but there's definitely free membership to our circle. We usually have ticketed events. If the cost is high, we have two forthcoming events in the pipeline. One of them is an interactive evening with an expert on D.H. Lawrence to revisit and discuss his classic controversial book, Data Chatterley's Novel. I'm sure nobody's heard of that. The second is a private and exclusive medical gather with Dr. Chopra. I also want to say on behalf of the Indians that we loved your grandfather, and we still do. He wrote a beautiful piece. I was just telling, just a few minutes before, Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara. And I remember I grew up singing that, and my great-grandfather He said, Tuki Gandhi hai, you know what you sing. And he said actually there was Lalaji who invited Iqbal to a big organization to speak. And he stood up in, I think he said 1904, yes. And he sang this for the first time. And since then, it is Indian, almost English, Indian society, every main function we have that, we sing it all the time. So, and I was sharing with you that all Indian people still who are privileged enough to know Urdu, who are not Muslims, still love Iqbal. And it was, you recently visited India, so I wasn't surprised that the Indian government has posthumously awarded Iqbal, which he should have done a long time ago. Finally, in keeping with promoting our aims to represent women, and we are dedicating this lecture to great woman Nazia Hassan. Nazia Hassan, in whose memory we are holding this lecture, was herself the biggest representative of our aims. Despite finding stardom at the tender age of 15, she went on to complete her studies and eventually qualified as a lawyer. This is why we chose to dedicate this lecture to her. She did more to bring India and Pakistan together than many politicians could or is doing. She became a household name overnight in both India and Pakistan after her phenomenal song, Aap Jaisa Koi Nahi. She was the one Pakistani I know for sure who was loved by Indian after Iqbal, of course. Her sad, untimely demise left Indians and Pakistanis very sad. We are united in our grief at her sad loss. Yet she lives through her son, Aris, who's 18 years old now, as we mentioned. She lives through the foundation her mother has founded to keep her memory alive in all in our hearts, as long as we are there. And I'm going to cut the rest of it, what we have done in our association to make our time. So thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you. Please now join me in introducing Sandra Saturday. Sandra is a journalist and has worked covering stories around the world. She has a special fondness for Pakistan and has been there many times, most recently in April 2014, when she helped host a lavish dinner in honour of Professor Langdon at HEC College at the Royal Farm in Lahore. She is the chair of their Solidarity, a group that has an all-party parliamentary group that has met many times in this very room. They work to promote peace and justice throughout the world. Sandra is also the treasurer of the Literary Circle of London, so please join me in welcoming Sandra Sattler.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. It's a privilege to be here tonight to introduce our speaker. A huge privilege, may I say. I'm treasurer of the new Literary Circle of London. I have been tasked to introduce Iqbal. I'm so pleased to do so. As you all know here, he is renowned as a politician, lawyer, political speaker, an activist, and grandson, most importantly, or perhaps alongside all the other accolades, of the great poet, Sir Allama Iqbal. Because his profile is so well documented in the public forum, I'm going to draw on a few elements of this amazing life that are not there on the internet for everyone. I'd like to say, perhaps, this is a total privilege because in the House of Commons, I think it is little known that Sir Dr. Allama Iqbal is a famous poet and that he has a long legacy of family that have followed to some extent or another in his pursuit of freedom, equality, and justice. I've identified 4 attributes, if we might call them elements of the life of Iqbal, which are not out there in the public forum. And I'm going to go through them quite quickly as a way of introduction and as a privilege to introduce. Firstly is the immense modesty and lack of attitude and arrogance Some say that in Pakistan, people who acquire a position of authority in some way become to swell their heads or become arrogant. Obviously, it's not true across the board, but this has occasionally been said. Therefore, it is interesting that Walid has studied at some of the most prestigious universities in the world, Harvard and Cambridge, for instance. And he's worked for some of the most well-known global law firms in London and New York. He's also a lecturer at the Lahore University of Management Sciences, which is another highly renowned global institution. Yet, when you meet the gentleman esteemed on my right, these comments don't come out about my pedigree is X, Y, and Z. This is a person who's very humble and quiet about these, in the global community, illustrious accreditations. Walid joined a political party where he works at the grassroots level, despite very, very impressive credentials. Walid has not insisted on a position of high authority. Rather, he prefers to be called a political activist, as I think many of us are here tonight. And in keeping with his intellect, Walid is part of a think tank involved with this party that he's joined, called the Insaf Marquez. So firstly, that summarizes the modesty of attitude and arrogance that I think our speaker has tonight. The second point I'd like to make is Walid is a fine intellect in both his legal capacity and more broadly as an intellectual. And with this, I consulted with a professor who's involved in my group, Third World Solidarity, about the intellectual background. And I think these words are absolutely apt to say, and more broadly, as an intellectual. When asked about whether there would ever be rule of law in Pakistan, the response from Walid was unique, I think. He was not defensive, but stated simply that the concept of the rule of law started in England, as we all know, 800 years ago, with the Magna Carta. And that was the Magna Carta between King John and the barons. It took a very long time to shape. We are here today in 2015. That's a very long time. And there have been changes over the years, and the democracy, so-called, has been improved. What Walid has said, which is, I think, important and pertinent, is, I quote, "Matters will improve in Pakistan too, and hopefully we will not need 800 years." So my third point is equality is a proven commitment to justice and a sense of fairness by Walid. This is manifested in so many areas of his life. Basically, unlike many Pakistanis who may hold the West responsible for so many wrongs in their country, often with justification, he had something positive to say about the West. Walid praised the West for its fair and just system based on meritocracy, simply, which allows people with real ability. And this is fundamentally important, because I have traveled so many times to Pakistan, and I don't see this. I see bright people, intelligent, wonderful people who are ready to host you, who have no chance of education or even potable water. So I'd like to say this is so fundamentally important, that a system is based on meritocracy in Britain and other democracies, which allows people with real ability to come forward, and this is through education and opportunity, etc. He said this is the secret successful society. Countries where there is nepotism lag far behind. I think these are really fundamental words. And then finally, I'll quickly, swiftly reach my final point, which is, WALID exhibits profound patriotism for and loyalty to, as many of you here do tonight, to Pakistan. And a tiny example is that despite having so many choices, aforementioned Harvard, Cambridge, the universe, global, well-known law companies and organizations, WALID has opted to stay in Pakistan. I think this is a monumental decision. WALID is married to, and in personal life shouldn't really come into this, but forgive me because we are a feminist group. WALID is married to a British woman, and WALID could easily change countries and come here, be established in Britain, and not have to face the threats that exist in Pakistan for people that advocate equality. And I'd just like to say that just over a year ago, in June, I was at the High Court of Lahore for a meeting with Third World Solidarity. And about a week later, exactly on the steps that I walked by, there was a woman stoned to death by a family who didn't agree with what she was doing in her marriage. And there's much work to be done. And I'd like to say that WALID has stood up and will continue to stand up for the face of equality and justice in Pakistan. And I would like to say he is a true patriot. And ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce WALID IQBAL. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'll be happy if I can rise to a fraction of what you said.